Ruchell Magee is the longest-held political prisoner in the United States, stemming from an attempt to escape racial tyranny and modern-day state-sanctioned slavery. Ruchell Magee was born in Louisiana in 1939, during the dark times of Jim Crow repression and freedom fighting in the South. Ruchell's first serious run-in with the racist American system came in 1955, when he was unjustly imprisoned in Louisiana at the age of 16 for associating with a white girl. The same year, Emmett Till was brutally murdered for a false accusation of offending a white girl. He spent 8 years in Angola State Penitentiary, a former plantation-turned-prison. After his mother's death during his prison sentence, Ruchell lost what could have been his family property and had to relocate. He decided to move to Los Angeles, California, where he was arrested on trumped-up charges around a marijuana trade. He stayed trapped in prison for 7 more years, until he was faced with an opportunity to make a bold move toward freedom. On August 7, 1970, Ruchell and several other prisoners took part in the Marin County Courthouse Rebellion in an attempt to escape their unjust confinement. The uprising began when Jonathan Jackson, the younger brother of Revolutionary Black Panther and prison organizer George Jackson, entered the courtroom with firearms to help George and other defendants on trial that day escape their unjust confinement and possible death sentences. Even though George turned out not to be present, the mission continued with those prisoners who were on the stand. Their trial was stemming from an incident at the Soledad prison where George Jackson was charged with killing a white prison guard after another guard murdered 3 black inmates. Ruchell was in court testifying on behalf of one of the other defendants and in no way involved in plotting the rebellion. Ruchell did not plan the rebellion, but when Jonathan asked him if he wanted to be free, he agreed and took a weapon.
I went over there to testify on behalf of James McClain, and I also testified about the Los Angeles County frame-up that got me in prison, made me a target. And while I was testifying, that's when things come down over there. I had 2 chances. I could have refused to go along with the rebellion, or I could go along with it and have a chance to reach TV, radio station. I went along with the rebellion. And in so doing, I was charged with murder, kidnap, and conspiracy. But when I get to trial, I explain the same thing that I was trying to get to the TV where the jury accepted my story. They didn't accept the state story. They found me not guilty.
After their short-lived liberation, the freedom fighters attempted to escape in a waiting van outside the courthouse. To guarantee their protection, the men held a judge, an assistant district attorney, and 3 jurors hostage. The San Quentin guards at the courthouse responded in a brutal fashion, opening fire on the van and killing Jonathan, James McClain, William Christmas, and the judge. Magee survived the massacre with serious wounds, but the blame of the rebellion and the police reaction was put on him as the sole survivor. The well-known professor, scholar, and revolutionary Angela Davis was also implicated in the rebellion because the guns Jonathan used were registered in her name, but she would later be acquitted of charges related to the uprising. Ruchell has spent most of his life since the age of 16 behind prison walls, a grand total of about 65 years. After the courthouse rebellion, Magee was sentenced to life in prison and denied the possibility of parole numerous times. He took on the name Sin Q to draw the parallel between his life and the freedom struggle of Sin Q, an African who led a rebellion on the Spanish slave ship La Amistad in the 19th century and won his people's freedom through struggle.
Sin Q case where he rebelled on the ship, that is history-wise, where he rebelled on the ship. He was kidnapped from Africa and being treated as a slave, being brought over here to be sold. Well, category of my case is the same. They put me in prison, capitalize off of me as a slave. We come under the same category. Only difference is between me and the Sin Q of old is that I don't get no hearing. Nobody's hearing me in the court.
Today, prison solidarity organizations, community groups, and activists are demanding Ruchell's freedom. Ruchell Magee is now 81 years old and the longest-serving political prisoner in the United States. During his long stint in prison, Magee has worked tirelessly to free himself and others from wrongful imprisonment, but this racist, capitalist state is intent on making sure he dies inside the walls, like George Jackson. Our fight is to make sure that he spends the rest of his life with his family, friends, and comrades outside of the walls. Senkyu's story is a lesson in how an oppressive state lashes out to those who oppose and fight back against it and its unjust mechanisms. To this day, the US continues to attack activists and tries to bury stories like Ruchel's to unsuccessfully hide the fact that America still enslaves black people and political dissidents who dare fight back. We're gonna keep fighting until Ruchell and all political prisoners held by the racist US empire are free. Free Ruchell Magee.